Hey, what's up, everyone? My name is Simo Goblin, and this is the Metal Music Podcast. I'm here with my friends Narga and Simo from the Metal Music Discord, where every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday we ask a randomly selected user to share a metal album of their choice, and the rest of the server will listen to, review, and discuss their thoughts. And tonight, we thought we would do that on this first episode of the podcast. So what we're going to do is discuss our thoughts on this week's picks and play a track or two from each album. Then we might also talk a little bit about the music that we've been listening to outside the weekly discussion.
We might do that.
Yeah, maybe. If time persists. And some of the albums from our top charts for the week. So I thought what we would do is probably introduce ourselves a little. I'm going to go first. So my name is Hemo Goblin, and I am a moderator on the Metal Music Discord server. And I primarily listen to black metal, but I like to think I keep a pretty open mind about some of the other subgenres, but I generally like to stick to more of the atmospheric varieties of black metal, you could say. And some of the hybrid subgenres like Black and Doom or Black and Death, maybe even some folk, some stuff like that. But how about you guys? You want to introduce yourselves or say a few words?
Yeah.
Simo.
I'm Simo. I'm in the Discord too. I'm a professional shit poster, and I like all kinds of metal. I'm not as cult as Hemo Goblin and Narga. I haven't gone that far down the rabbit hole yet, but I'm a little more user friendly, I think, in my musical tastes. And that's about it.
What about you?
You don't need to know fuck all about me.
Are you sure? Oh God.
I'm sure.
That's all we need to know right there.
Alright.
Oh God, it's going down.
This is going
He's
to be
actually gonna do it.
This is going to be Narga's first and last episode on the Metal Music Podcast.
Yeah.
Obviously, he likes depressive black metal.
Yeah. He's going to make this really true. We're going to have his mom come in and take a picture of his corpse. And we'll use it as the cover photo for our podcast.
We're gonna turn his bones into a necklace.
Oh, she's gone for a few days, so I'll be nice and fermented by the time she gets around.
Wait, is that all they need to know about you? Is that your mom's gone for a few days?
Yeah, man. Hey, what's up?
Party at Narga's.
I'm a member of the Metal Music Discord. I look fucking metal and shit. I have a mom, like the most of you.
That's fucking fascinating.
She got pissed at me because I was late for the bus. It's a fucking Mom, I'm gonna catch the bus. Fuck off.
What the fuck are you doing?
So yeah.
Alright.
This is it.
This is your all-star cast.
This
First
is us.
episode.
Fucking goofballs.
I like how we got the guy with the noisiest fucking keyboard to start the song.
What's up, man?
Like an atom bomb went off.
Hey, I mean, you can't... It's quality.
Do you have
It's
a
a
mechanical keyboard?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, type
Does it
something.
have black backlights?
It's got blue backlights,
No, it's not cool. Get out of here.
but it's... I mean, it looks cool. It's black.
Revoked. Your privileges have been revoked. Get
I'm
the
pulling
fuck
your
out of
card.
here. Yeah. Get Ark in here. Wake him up.
I mean, it's got these clear switches on it, so it sounds really cool.
That doesn't do fuck all.
I mean, and that degrades.
Yeah.
Alright.
Alright, so I
First
figured...
episode of the Metal Music Keyboard Cast.
Yeah, fuck metal. Nobody wants to talk about metal music.
Alright, this is now a mechanical keyboard podcast.
Yeah.
Get out of here.
I win, because I have a mechanical
Logitech
keyboard.
for life.
So, what I thought we would do first is maybe talk a little bit about weekly discussion in general.
I mean, if
like,
you want.
so like,
On the server, I guess.
yeah, so, I mean, like, what about the server do we want to tell people? I mean, it's about metal music, obviously, because it's called metal music.
Yeah, it's a public server. Anybody can join. Anybody who has any interest in any type of metal. I mean, there's no genre limitations or anything. Whatever type of metal you're into,
Including...
you can probably join and find a handful of people that have the same interests as you. And then if you have any interest in other genres, then it's all there as well.
We are actually core friendly. I know that might kill some people inside a little bit, but there are people who listen to core in our server, so don't feel like you're going to get
muted. You're probably fine.
Yeah. And there's people that listen to Sabaton and Nightwish too.
So I mean,
I mean,
we got all kinds here. Don't feel
dregs
bad.
of society.
Also, if you think fucking Karach Angren is like
Karach.
the sacred right to higher knowing, then you need to get the fuck out of here. Don't even apply.
You need to read the wiki is what you need to do.
You're gonna read that wiki, brother.
Read that musical comp wiki.
But yeah, we got what? I would say like at least, I mean, there's 200 people on the server, but I think we got at least like, what do you think? Like 30 people that are regularly like active in the server?
Yeah, there's only like 30 people tops, and they're all active at different times. But I mean, it's still pretty active for a server its size. I mean, it's not the biggest server, but I don't know. I'm pretty happy with the amount of it. Yeah,
amount.
It's not like scrolling screens or anything.
Exactly. If you're looking for some wall of text every 10 seconds, this really isn't the place for you. But if you want to just get some good recommendations and enough interaction with some people that are actually interested in proper discussion, this is probably a place you'd be interested in.
Yeah, I'd say so too.
And then we have the whole weekly discussion thing, which used to be once a week, and then we got more people, and you know the time difference between albums. There's only so much time that you can spend talking about one album. So now it's still called the weekly, but we pick 3 albums a week.
It's a tri-weekly event. It happens every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday around 12 p.m. 12 p.m. Eastern time.
But Hemo, how does the weekly work?
Well, Ark has created a bot that will randomly select a user from a list of users, and that user is supposed to reckon a metal album of their choice, and then the rest of the server will discuss it for the next couple of days. And users end up pinging us with some ratings on a scale of 1 to 10, and we add them to the chart, and everyone can look at the chart and discuss everyone else's ratings if they so desire.
Yep, and you can post reviews, and the reviews will get added to a separate chart if you want. And then I think Hemo, you're like adding all that stuff to the Rate Your Music page and shit, right?
Yeah, I have a list on Rate Your Music. It's all pinned into the description in our server on the weekly discussion channel. I imagine that wherever we end up posting this, we'll have a link to the server too, so people can join if they're interested.
Something I think is worth bringing up as well is the fact that this Discord server is very bot friendly. Mm-hmm. The owner has made multiple bots that revolve around Last.fm usage and the such. So if you have a Last.fm and you have a fuck ton of Scrabbles listed, you put in your information to the bot and you get a bunch of neato features. You can compare your taste to other users. You just put in a simple command and it'll show what you're currently playing right now. It's really limited to that server as far as metal servers go. I haven't seen stuff like that or quite like that anywhere else.
And Art programmed it himself, so it's pretty unique.
Yeah,
it's not like all these other bots that are in the Last.fm server or in the music servers.
He's a talented guy, that one.
Yeah, shout out to Art.
Yeah, he's all right.
Oh shit! Shout out to Inver for that badass intro.
Oh yeah, dude, that was great.
Yeah, he's all right.
We should have like credits at the end or something like.
Nah, fuck that.
This is produced by us and us alone.
If you weren't mentioned, you probably don't fucking matter.
Ooh.
Yikes.
Damn. Shout out to in that case, shout out to my boy Bud Lord.
Bud Lord.
Oh, fuck. Yeah, if you're a fan of shit posts, stay the fuck away. We've already filled our quota.
Yeah.
Well, we've got an album from Buttlord today.
That is true.
Yeah.
It's surprisingly fucking good.
Do you want to go ahead and talk about his selection for us this week?
I'm
Sure.
content with it.
All right, so this first pick this week that was picked on Monday, it was from Batlord, or we call him Buttlord, but he's actually called I Like Batlord. It's an imaginary soniscape from the Japanese avant-garde metal band Sigh. So anybody want to open up with some impressions or something about the album?
Yeah, Narga does.
All right. They're fucking weird, but good in how they execute it. Like, I haven't listened to Sigh before at all, and my impressions going into this were completely blank. I heard that they were a black metal band, and maybe they were earlier in their discography, but they clearly weren't on this album.
Mm-hmm.
And Batlord's music tastes are hard to pin down. Really, all I've come to know is
also known as the hater of metal.
Yeah, he usually listens to like predominantly jazz, or at least that's what he puts off. And then as far as metal goes, there's Batlord or fucking Bathory, and like classic heavy metal. Like what does he fucking listen to? He listens to King Diamond.
Yeah,
and like that's the two artists.
Merciful Fate.
Merciful Fate.
I'm not really sure if he actually listens to them. I think he just tells us he does.
But I think Sigh is a good reference point for like pinning down the type of shit that Buttlord likes. I mean,
is it though?
As far as I can tell, it's just like the weirder it is, the better it is. Unless it's like classic rock.
It kind of has all those elements that he usually talks about. Like it's even got some jazz elements in there a little, and it's even got some heavy. I got heavy metal vibes from that album, to be honest. Like some of these sections that, like at least in the guitars,
like around the choruses and stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
kind of. Would you say it's in vein of like New Nocturnal Mortem, where it's more hard rock orientated almost?
You could say that, yeah. I mean, there were some sections that were kind of hard rock for sure, but there were also some sections that were kind of akin to black metal, and like mixed with a little bit of heavy metal. And I even got some prog rock vibes, like some of the like stuff from the 70s. There's a lot of use of organs and synthesizer work in there. And I think that's one of the highlights of the album, to be honest, is the synthesizer and the organ sounds. I think that really sets the atmosphere for that album, that it kind of makes it kind of creepy and off kilter.
So what rating did you guys end up giving it?
I went with a 7.
I think I gave it an 8.
The reason I went with a 7 was because there were a couple tracks that, even though they were good, they kind of like didn't fit within the context of the album. Like there was a trip hop song that was like the third or fourth track on the album.
We're not going to talk about that song.
Do what?
We're not going to talk about that song.
Oh.
Oh, okay. This was like one of the few weekly discussions that I've come to a pretty similar opinion on the album as Simo did, where I don't quite remember the tracks. I know it was track 3 that you really didn't like, and it was maybe 6. I don't remember which one, but I agree that both
8,
of them.
But that includes the 2 bonus songs though, so I don't really know which one it is. Like in the regular version.
We listened to, and Hemo, I think you did as well, the extended version with the 2 bonus tracks.
I did not listen to that one.
You did not?
No, I didn't. So I listened to the original one that was only like 63 minutes long or something like that. I think you guys had like 2 tracks that were added in it.
Yeah, it added like maybe 9 minutes worth of material or something.
So I might go back and listen to that or something, but...
Did you guys hear any Billy Idol in that album?
I mean, I don't know if I heard Billy Idol like vocally.
No, not vocally, but I'm talking about like just like the rhythm guitar riffs and like some of the drum beats. Like some of that shit like reminded me of like White Wedding. You know what I mean? Where it's kind of like that driving, just, you know, 4 on the floor kick, and then, you know, the slow muted or whatever with the weird shit going on behind it. That kind of stuff within that album, I really enjoyed. Like, you could say it sounded like heavy metal, and a lot of it does. But I heard some of that type of shit in there too, and it was really cool. Like, I thought that the songs that were good, to me at least, were actually really good. But I gave it a 6 out of 10 because those 2 songs were just so bad. Like, track 3, what you said, you called it trip hop, and then the other one, which was like a clappy, like happy-go-lucky rock and roll song with like some weird sound on top of it, just to try to make it like avant-garde or whatever. Those 2 songs were so bad to me that I couldn't like rightfully give it a higher rating than a 6. You know what I mean?
Track 3 sounded like Rammstein.
Really?
It really did.
Well, I know that like sometimes these artists like they like to kind of combine some styles that you wouldn't really ever, you know, imagine meshing together and try to mesh it together, but sometimes it doesn't work well, or maybe they think it works well, but you know, the general listener probably would be kind of turned off by it. You know, they're probably expecting, you know, some kind of weird... I think when a lot of people think avant-garde metal or prog metal, they think, you know, they're expecting some kind of, like, weird, angular, disjointed riffs and not, like, meshing different styles together like Sigh does. And I think Sigh does this on, like, a bunch of different of their... like, on most of their discography. I haven't really...
Yeah.
I know this album's kind of from the middle of their discography, so I don't know how they evolve, and I haven't really listened to a whole lot of Sigh. But...
Well, like, talking about what you're saying about whether it works or it doesn't, like, I feel like this type of music where they try to do those experimental things, like, I feel like it's to me, it's like black and white. Like, if it works, then it's fucking awesome. And if it doesn't work, it's terrible.
Yeah, you're right.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't feel like there's any, like, middle ground there. So, like, track 3 and the other one, those don't work to me. And so they just sound like shit. But the rest of it does work, and it sounds amazing.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that it was weird hearing, like, these black metal vocals over these, like, or these tracks with organs, and like even on the hard rock sounding songs, like he's still doing black metal vocals.
Yeah, that the whole thing is it's like traditional black metal vocals too.
Yeah, but like you don't really ever hear a whole bunch of like trim riffs or anything like that. It's just most of the black metal is in his vocals, I feel.
But he does it really well too.
Yeah, and sometimes it kind of catches you off guard, I'd say, but you kind of get used to it. Like, you realize that this is how he's going to be going the whole album. So you kind of settle in, yeah.
That was interesting for sure.
The 2 tracks that we ended up not liking were very strangely placed as well, I think. They really fucked up the pacing.
Yeah, that could be a problem.
I ended up actually giving the album a 7. I went back and checked. And I do recall coming to the conclusion that I rated it based on the extended version. I wasn't rating it on the original. So those 2 tracks actually brought it up to a 7. And I remember saying that if it were the original one without the 2 bonus tracks, it would have just been a flat out 6. And then if the 2 tracks that I did not like, which were tracks 3 and whatever the other one was, we can't remember because of the differences between the original and the extended version. If those 2 tracks were replaced by the 2 bonus tracks, I think it would have been a much more solid album, maybe within the realms of like giving it an 8 out of 10. Because even though they had some really strange avant-garde ideas, not in the traditional way where it's just like, let's play some wacky riffs. They just kind of, like you said, they meshed a bunch of styles, but they did it really well. Like, it didn't sound forced in any way. It was strange and probably wouldn't appeal to most people's ears, but that doesn't exactly mean that it was done poorly.
Yeah, I agree. That would be an easy 8 if it wasn't for those 2 tracks. Even if they just took them out and it was an 8-track album, it would have been an 8.
I think so too. One of the things that I thought was kind of impressive was that this is actually like the 3rd highest rated album in our 3rd season of Weekly Discussion. Which, and like, you know, the first like, when people first started pinging in with rates, you know, there were people complaining about, like, I think in the first track there was this, like, every couple minutes or so there was like this screeching sound that sounded like a car horn.
I don't even know what they were referring to.
Yeah, it was like a siren or something.
And that turned a couple people off, like, at the beginning, which is, I mean, I guess that's understandable, but then, like, as time went on, I mean, like, people were starting to ping in with, like, 7s and 8s all over the place, and I thought that that this would be, like, a really controversial album because of how all the styles that they're trying to, like, blend together, but it seems like, for the most part, it worked for a lot of people.
Yeah, I think that's all bad I got to say about that one.
Yeah, I think so. You think we should let them sample a song from it?
Yeah, we've selected a song for the listeners to check out.
I think we all agree that it's one of the best songs on the album.
It's definitely the one that stuck around in chat for the longest.
Yeah, it's
it was like a 48-hour meme.
Yeah, so
Bring back the dead.
Yeah, it's called Bring Back the Dead. So I'm gonna go ahead and cue that up. All right, so here we go.
Oh, man. I don't think that's Bring Back the Dead, bro.
Nope, wrong
Oh
one.
shit. This ain't the Sigh I know.
Yikes! Alright. Here we go. I done fucked up, y'all.
You can cut that out, don't worry.
Yeah, we go.
dancing now? God
Bring
damn.
back to the dead. Bring back to the dead.
Who was that, Hemo? What was that?
Yeah, man. Let us
Hey,
know.
Hemo. What's going on, dude?
Who
Hey.
is that really cool band?
Hey, Hemo. I think he still has his mic muted. Oh, there he is.
Hey. Okay. I had
Start
my
running
mic.
into that thing.
It's all good. It's all good now. That was that was Bring Back the Dead from Sigh's Imaginary Soniscape album from 2001.
Yeah, you were too busy dancing.
Oh,
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, that's what it was. My mic wasn't muted or anything.
Ballroom music.
He was dancing. He was away from his computer.
Yeah.
He was dancing. Whatever. I feel it. I felt it. I felt the urge.
Yeah, I really think that's probably the best song from the album in my opinion.
That's
I felt
way
a
better
little
for
bit of the
me.
Billy Idol from what you said earlier.
I did hear Billy Idol.
A
Yep.
bit there at the beginning.
Gotta
Yeah.
pay attention. Gotta pay attention. Listen closely,
Shit.
and you'll get it.
All right.
Oh God! Now we get to talk about funeral doom.
Oh yeah.
Hey, boy.
This is
Fuck, I wanna
Simo's
die.
favorite. This
Yeah,
is going to be your
favorite.
favorite.
Favorite genre of music.
Funeral
How's that
doom
Doom
has
lately feel?
its intended effect on me. Let's put it that way.
To put you to sleep.
What did
Fucking
you
make
end
me
up
wanna
rating it?
die. This next one,
Yeah.
2.
All right. So this next one is from the Finnish doom or funeral doom metal band Wormphlegm, and it's their 2006, I think, effort, Tomb of the Ancient King, and Geb from the Discord server picked it for us on Wednesday. So what do you guys think about it?
I'll start.
Yeah, please. Let's
Look, I'm not gonna trash it. All right. I'm
let's
just
hear
gonna
it.
trash. I'm not gonna trash the album. I'm just gonna trash Funeral Doom.
Alright. Even better.
So, I'll start with like the beginning and the middle part of it. Like, there's that piano. It's like a real like a dissonant, like heavy piano stroke of like, you know, it's like ominous shit, right? They do that right at the beginning of the album, and they do it like halfway through it, I think.
Mhm.
And I think like if they had done that shit like through the whole entire album, then that would have been, at least for me, much better.
Really?
Because it adds something onto what I find like stale in that sort of doom metal. Not just funeral doom, but just doom in general, where I'm hearing a chug, you know, and like anything like that piano line, which was really cool. If they can throw it on top of something like that, it makes it better to me because there's more going on. The atmosphere was good. I understood it. You know, the whole funeral doom concept of atmosphere. You know, like kind of, or you're in a crypt type of thing.
Yeah.
It was okay. The tone was good. It you know, the guitar tones and everything sounded good. The leads, I felt like they didn't always fit. Like, I don't know if you noticed, but like in the very beginning of the album, like they play this lead that sounds like surf rock. It's like, and it's just like maybe if I never heard surf rock before, like maybe it would fit. But since, you know, I heard Beach Boys in that lead, it was just like immediate turnoff from like the first, you know, 2 minutes of the album or whatever it was.
I mean, have you ever
after-
tried surfing on the river Styx before?
No,
Shit.
why would I do
Oh,
that?
fucking, they
Am
certainly
I
have.
fucking crazy? I live in a concrete jungle, bro. There's no surfing. There's no rivers.
You live in a
There's nothing
desert.
there. So the
No
goddamn
water.
but see, like if that album, I don't know. I liked it for about 15 minutes,
Yeah.
and then after about 15 minutes, it starts feeling like one really long song, and it just felt like way too long. The vocals, I thought they were good, but they also got a little tiring after a while. But the guy, like, he's like that fucking deep fucking, like, he sounds like he's inhuman. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He does that really well. Artwork was cool. It looked like, you know, black and white. You know, they said it looks like fucking Arthas from World of Warcraft.
Yeah, someone said
You
it
know,
looks like the
sitting there
Lich
with
King.
sword.
I think that's what they're going for. I'm not
Really?
sure.
The Lich King, for real?
It looks a bit too much like the Lich King, dude.
Yeah. Wow, they're WoW nerds.
Yeah, but I mean, I gave it a 2 out of 10 because, you know, after about 20 minutes, I lost interest, and it's an hour long. So it was like 40 minutes of me not wanting to hear it anymore, and I sat through it because that's what you do with the weekly picks. So yeah, that's all I got to say about it. I went through it.
I can kind of agree with what you were saying with the piano. Maybe not as a continuous thing throughout the whole album, but if it made a few more returns later on, it would definitely be welcome. Like a nice throwback to fucking 25 minutes earlier in the album, because it does drone on, and that's kind of the point they're trying to make here, is that just the tone and the way the drums were played, everything kind of centers around just the entire atmosphere of the music just being fucking pummeled into you. Like, their first album, which I wasn't really a big fan of, was mainly centered around like the idea of torture and shit like that. Yeah. And they've kind of lost that. They kind of ditched the whole gimmick that was around that first album, where it was just, let's play some Funeral Doom music and have people screaming and crying and just torture sound effects thrown over it
peeing
and call
sounds.
it a day. Peeing sounds, fucking like that was the first album, and then they were like, all right, let's get rid of the gimmicks here. We'll keep the torturous sound, but we won't use as many just fucking annoying cliches that were the weird cryings and the straight up belches at some point. So instead of just basically going like searching up the Wikipedia page of torture and reading it off to you musically, they decided to actually go about it a little more straightforward, which I think kind of paid off because of how primitive it was in how it was just big ass chords being thrown right into your chest. And to me, there's varying differences in most Funeral Doom, where you have like the stuff that's centered around emotions and more depressive kind of sounding stuff where there's more melody involved, and then there's the Funeral Doom that's like this, where it's just bone shaking the whole way through, and it's not really meant to be entertaining beyond just more so being painful, I guess. Which sounds ridiculous, but it is. Like, you got to imagine what this would sound like in a live setting, being in like a small venue, and the artists just have walls of fucking amplifiers, Emperor cabs, Sun amps, or whatever the fuck they happen to be using, and it's just shaking the building. And the vocalist is pretty typical of the genre. Yeah. But he made some pretty neat sounds, like every now and again, where it was just like a straight up gurgle, or it sounded like he was singing with a knife in his chest.
Oh, that's cool. That's a cool way to put it.
So the atmosphere was there, and I think they reached their desired effect. It's just, this is clearly a genre not everyone can get around. I ended up giving it, I think I gave this one an 8 out of 10.
I think I gave this one a 6 or a 7.
Yeah, but I for one actually enjoy albums that are this monotonous and repetitive, as long as they have a good riff to go off of, or a good just overall sound. I think for like just a monotonous repetitive riff, that side of thing is why I'm such a big fan of like Drudke or Yig and bands like that, where a lot of people were turned off by it because of how it's really just them playing 3 or 4 riffs, if even, for 10, 12 minutes or more. But if the riff is good, then fuck it, play it forever. Like, that shit's awesome. And of course there's little variances, but that's getting off topic. The other side of that is where the these guys, Wormphlegm, they didn't really have much going as far as riffs. Sometimes they pulled out a nice riff now and then, but it was mostly centered around that sound where everything was hitting you at once. The vocals, the guitars, the bass, and the drums were all just very, like, simple but loud. And I think that's honestly, there's no hiding it. The evolution of doom metal hasn't really been as advanced as other genres. It's really just been, hey, these guys have done this before. Let's do it better. But their version of better is just louder and slower.
Yeah.
So you got to find like where in that threshold you're comfortable with it most, because that the other band that I thought of when listening to this that plays a very similar style, but I didn't enjoy it nearly as much was Moss.
Oh yeah, Moss is cool.
And they play essentially this album just slower and heavier. Like it got even more extreme, and it was too much for me. Like sometimes a note would just be stretching off. It was basically they were playing drone, but without like the textures. When you listen to drone, it's very reliant on the tone, and you can hear different variances in the tone. But with Moss, not so much. It was just a straight fat note.
Yeah, with a lot of feedback too.
A lot of feedback.
Yeah.
I mean, feedback's always welcome.
Yeah.
But in my eyes, but for some reason, Moss, I think it was Subtemplum was the album.
Yeah.
I wasn't feeling it nearly as much. I think I may have given that a 6 or a 7. I don't recall. It's been a while. But yeah, this Wormphlegm, I think, is like the same kind of creative output, just not stretched out nearly as much.
Yeah.
That's where I stand on it.
Well, I gave this I've decided I'm going to give this probably around a 7 out of 10. Pretty solid 7, I'd say. One of the things that I really liked about this album was that I'm going to kind of compare it to the other Funeral Doom album that was wrecked earlier this season by Untitled. It's the first one. It was from Funeral Mourning, the Left Seeing Yet Unspoken, whatever the rest of the title is. The thing about that first one was that for me it seemed more of like a almost like an ambient track. Like it was like really, really atmospheric and had a lot of those almost like post-rock leads over it. And like, I mean, it was cool and everything, but it just didn't like, there wasn't anything about it that really like grabbed my attention, I guess.
That one grew on me. That would be a good example of the more emotional styled Funeral Doom I was talking about.
For sure. And but what I liked about this one was that it's kind of a different. It's kind of got a more of an old school approach to it, I guess, where it sounds kind of closer to like death doom metal or doom metal, and it's just really spaced out and down-tuned version of death metal and death doom metal. So it was a little bit more, I don't know, a little bit more riff-tastic, I guess you could say. But I will say that I did listen to this album about 5 or 6 times, but 2 of those times I did fall asleep. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It just means that there's nothing that is really offensive about the album to me, I guess. But
well, I mean, did you? So answer a question real quick.
Yeah.
Is that Lost album that I like a lot? Is that Funeral Doom?
Yeah, technically, yeah. It's Funeral Doom, and like some sections, it's like more of a Death Doom thing.
Okay, so that would be like a pretty good example of like what I was trying to say earlier. Was like if you listen to that Lost album, there's always something going on on top of that, like drony, every couple of seconds with the bass and the snare and the one riff.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm getting at?
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah.
You talking about Horizonless, like the one that came out this year?
Yeah, like I do like Funeral Doom. It just has to be.
Captivating.
It has to have enough going on to keep.
You don't
want to
be. You don't want to be skull fucked for 55 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm not at that point yet, I guess.
I do agree that I think if that piano did make a comeback, it might be a little bit more captivating. I really did like that piano, but like what I like about the style that's on this album is that it's a kind of version of Funeral Doom that has a little bit more pace instead of atmosphere. So like they are chugging, but it's more of a consistent chug. And I think it may be a little bit more. I do think it's a little faster than some of the more modern Funeral Doom albums, where like I don't even. It almost sounds like they're not even like keeping any kind of meter at all. But yeah, this album had a little bit more of a pace to it than some of the more modern Funeral Doom albums that I've heard. And
what score did you give it?
I decided I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Kind of like
a
middle
style
grade.
like that.
Yeah.
Where if you have that kind of consistent pace going on, when they decide to speed up or slow down,
you hear it.
It just it makes it more impactful for sure. As opposed to just I don't remember the name of the Funeral Doom album that Untitled correct earlier.
It's a long title, I think.
Yeah, something. I remember it grew on me with a second listen, like when I came back to it.
Yeah.
I did like it a lot more than the first time. But the major difference between those two is how many more layers there were.
Yeah.
On Untitled. There was a lot going on in the background between like just ambient sound effects, fucking reverb on everything, and multiple guitar tracks. Wormphlegm didn't really do that much. It was very bare bones, naked Funeral Doom.
Yeah, I'd say so too.
And like you said, it was probably more comparable to most Death Doom than it would be most Funeral Doom.
Yeah, I think so too. Simo's hacking right now.
He's giving us a good hack. I think Simo might be preparing us to.
I was trying to find
get us ready to
name of that
song.
Goddamn album.
Which one?
The Funeral Mourning one. I typed in Funeral Mourning and it's just can't find it. Doesn't matter. Yeah, doesn't matter. It's doom metal anyways.
It's trash.
Let's get on with it.
So you guys ready to queue up one of these tracks for them to listen to?
Yeah.
Or you?
You see, okay, so the thing about this is that this album is only 3 tracks long, even though it's an hour long, more or less. And so we're only going to be able to play an excerpt from the album, and if you like it, you should definitely go check it out, and maybe even the album before it. So I'm going to play you a small excerpt from the second track on the album. It's the title track, Tomb of the Ancient King by Wormphlegm.
Let's hit it up.
Alright, so that was the title track from Wormphlegm's 2006 effort, Tomb of the Ancient King.
Man, those fucking vocals.
Look, that was a good
Excerpt?
clip. Yeah, that was a good excerpt he took out of it. It was one of the more active air.
Well, it was the first 5 minutes of the title track, to be honest, so...
What? I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that surf riff.
It was the second track on the album, so...
Oh, see.
Yeah. The first track is a half hour long, man.
Hey, so we found the
Imagine
name.
that shit live.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
You want to
We
try
found
it?
the name. Are you gonna do it? Say it as fast as you can.
Left seething yet unspoken in veneration of broken winds.
Damn.
Broken world.
Wait. What's the band? Funeral Mourning.
Yeah. Not
Left
more.
seething yet unspoken in veneration of broken worlds.
Left
Well,
seething,
go.
yet unspoken. In veneration of the broken worlds.
What
In
is
the-
that?
Seething yet unspoken in veneration of broken worlds.
the mini LP.
What does veneration mean? Like a
Dude, I'm
like
not
a
smart enough to know.
like a venerable broken world.
It's just metal, man. That's all you have to know.
Like
It's got great respect. It's got reverence.
Yeah.
As Google has told me so.
as broken worlds do.
Who needs vocabulary when you have Google?
Alright. Well, how fast can you read off the first album from Wormphlegm?
I don't even know how to pronounce some of those.
What does it say?
In an excruciating way, infested with vermin and violated by the execution of the practice of the radio, segmented the pious.
You fucked it up. Do it in your black metal voice.
My bad. It's in my blood.
In an excruciating way, infested with vermin and violated by executioners who practice incendiarism and desanctifying the pious by Wormphlegm.
That's a really long title for an album that's only a half hour long.
It's
Yeah.
fucking mediocre.
It's probably
silly.
all of the lyrics in the album too, right there in the title.
I wouldn't doubt it.
No,
man.
dude.
No, dude.
Dude.
These lyrics are fucked up, man. It's like it's like the centerpiece of the album.
Where do you find lyrics for this shit?
They're on darklyrics.com, man.
Wow.
Yeah, everybody
jeez.
Google that. If you listen to this album or listen to their last album, you have to read the lyrics along with it.
All right, let's talk about black gays.
This is Lantlôs.
You guys know how I feel about black gays. I know that the black names
He's gonna do
don't
it. He's
don't
gonna
like.
do it.
Oh God, he's gonna shoot himself. Listen. It's good music. All right, black gays is good music. If you want to argue with everybody and say that it's not black metal, that's fine. But
No, I'm not gonna argue with it. But like straight up black gaze is boring as fuck. Like
Well,
that one
speaking of that,
weekly we had
which
from
one?
second season where it had like the space dude on the cover.
Archivist.
Holy shit, it was so goddamn boring and
Uh.
just average, but like
I thought it was
You're
gonna-
mediocre.
You're gonna make
Bad.
Brexiters sad.
man, I like Brexiter, and when I fucking joined the server was when he had his profile picture was like I know it was Neurosis related, and I was like, oh, okay, cool, I dig Neurosis. Like, that's a band I can get into every now and then. And then he wrecks that shit, and it was just fucking painful.
Shots
Archivist, or whatever the fuck.
fired.
Like,
Archivist.
Archivist.
Archivist, ooh, I fucking archive your shitty album on my rhyme.
It's not even good enough for me to pirate. Fuck that shit.
I paid for it.
I thought it was okay. I mean, I
Yeah.
only listened to it once, but I wasn't offended by it.
All right.
So
Let's bring it up to current year though, because we've had a revisit of the genre recently.
Mm-hmm.
And
Well-
what album was that?
What
It's
this? Oh yeah,
it's not-
this
Narga.
weekly.
Narga didn't listen to this one yet, so
I haven't got around to listening to this one yet.
this
Oh,
is.
I think it's a 2010 release though, so I wouldn't say current year. I don't
It's,
know.
Well, when it was put into weekly.
I'm not a
Like,
black metal
fucking
historian,
it's this decade at least.
so I don't know like when the whole like post rock influence started to like work its way into that sort of music.
It's gotten really popular this within this decade for sure.
Well, this album kind of feels like it's in its infancy at that point. Like,
yeah.
Where they weren't really. I mean, say what you want about like bands like Deaf Heaven and stuff, but this album felt to me like they weren't exactly sure how to do it yet. They weren't exactly sure how to mesh, the blast beats and shit with like post rock. Like I said, flowers growing out of the grave.
Yeah.
And it sounded it was off-putting to me. It was kind of boring. I think maybe because of my frame of reference, because I've actually listened to a lot of black gaze, and I know that it's like kind of a hated genre or whatever by the true cult among you. But I have, when I listen to black gaze these days, I have certain expectations when I hear it, and this one sounds a lot more. It's like it has a lot of more Blink 182 in it than it does like Emperor.
Ooh,
and I'm not looking forward to this already.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's I don't know. You might cringe on the track. We picked the one that kind of encompasses the entire album in one song. I ended up giving it a 3 out of 10. It wasn't necessarily torture, but it just seemed like it wasn't for the genre itself. It just wasn't very well done to me.
I ended up giving this one a 5 out of 10, and it's not because I was like offended by it or anything. I'm actually not really that offended by black gaze. Like, I mean, I know everybody makes all these memes and says all this stuff about being true and how black gaze isn't very true or cult, but I mean,
like black gay.
But I mean, one of my primary problems with this is that almost every track kind of sounds the same, in my opinion, at least. It almost kind of reminds me of some screamo albums from like the 90s, where like it reaches that kind of that feel sometimes instead of like black metal or shoegaze. But yeah, I gave this a 5 out of 10 because there's not really any variation, and I feel like once you listen to one track, maybe like this track we're going to play here in a little bit, you've pretty much heard most of the album. But what I think is one of the more redeeming characteristics of the track of the album is probably Neige. Neige is on this album from Alcest and some of his other projects, and his vocal approach is very interesting, I'd say.
That's the singer from Alcest?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that. I didn't even my mind kind of went on autopilot after a while. Like,
big nosed knee.
You get to hear him do some harsh vocals on this one, so it's pretty cool.
Okay.
That's right. He doesn't do any harsh vocals at all, huh?
Well, he did at one point in Alcest, but like
not much anymore.
It's been a while. He brought it back with the recent album. Let it be stated, I'm not no fucking hater of black gaze. I think a lot of it is really boring and subpar to me, but I can enjoy some Alcest, and like the most recent album, Kodama. Was,
I know you like
really
Alcest,
good
but
in
see,
my eyes.
Alcest doesn't even sound like black gaze to me. Like
That
it's like
okay, well, how would you
way
put that?
more like mellow. Like I don't know, dude. Like it just sometimes it just sounds like post rock to me.
Because the problem is when you say that Alcest doesn't sound like black gaze, and then you realize that they were the ones that fucking pioneered the genre. It's
More
like,
or less,
well,
yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, the band that defined the genre doesn't sound like the genre. So what are these bands that do sound like the genre? What are they?
Well,
Yeah.
if they like, I can see like if they had that influence where they kind of like spawned the entire scene or idea of whatever. But like Kodama doesn't, to me, it doesn't sound like what I would expect from like a modern day black gaze record. Like you got the bigger ones, I guess. So you could say, Deaf Heaven and like a Numenorian and maybe like Moon Lover from Ghost Bath. And a lot of those albums, they have their slower, like more melodic parts, but they have, Alcest is I I've heard it a couple of times, and I don't remember like any like real like hard or fast or blast beats or anything like that. I just heard mostly just melodic music, and from like the other stuff that
like
I'm
I
not
don't
sure.
think it was supposed to sound aggressive. There was still a lot of tremolo picked riffs, and there was some screams in there. But I do agree that maybe Kodama is like a bad example for recent day black gaze, but I think
I've actually only
it's
heard
definitely
two
a more.
Alcest albums though.
Yeah, I haven't gone through the entire discography, and they're not a band that I return to very
Yeah.
often. I have to be in a certain mood for that, and it's kind of the same mood I'd be in if I wanted to listen to like post metal and stuff like Neurosis, like chilled out Neurosis and stuff. And I usually pick albums like that before I would
From
Black
what
Gaze.
from what I remember, the first Alcest album is one of the more aggressive ones. And then as it goes on, I haven't listened to the new one though, so I'm kind of speaking from what a very small, my small experience with Alcest. But from what I remember, I felt like the first album was the most aggressive one, and then as time went on, it kind of just started sounding more and more like normal
Well,
shoegaze.
Back before they released the first album, when they were still doing demos, if you go and you scrounge up the demos, those were apparently just straight up like
Black metal.
black metal. Yeah,
Really?
yeah, and what Niche I think he used to drum for Pest Noir.
Yeah, he
So
did, or something like that.
like some straightforward, more traditional raw black metal shit before he decided to move on with the black gaze creation, I suppose. But Kodama really did bust out a lot more variants than most black gaze.
Yeah, and it's a really good album.
It's
just
excellent.
it kind of
I
stands
like
on
it a
its
lot.
own.
The drumming is super interesting. The vocals are full of depth, I suppose. Like, at some point, the way it was mixed, he sounds like he's kind of in the distance, buried behind all this this reverb and sound coming off the guitars and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll just shriek and it'll jump right to the forefront. And it's awesome. Like the whole, the way it's mixed, it sounds like it's moving, like it's flowing water, which I think is something that a lot of black gaze tries to accomplish, but doesn't necessarily succeed in doing so. Stuff like Moon Lover from Ghost Bath. I remember when I was first introduced to the album and I first checked it out. I thought it was interesting because I was still not very familiar with the genre, and I remember, for the most part, liking it. There was two songs kind of in the middle ground. It was part one and part two of a song. I don't remember what they were called anymore. But there was a nice build-up in the middle that led to this fucking soul-crushing scream and like this riff that just came out of nowhere. It was like an awesome build-up to a perfect climax that resonated with me really well. But when I came back to the album later, I didn't connect with it at all. Like all my previous opinions kind of just vanished, and I was unsure as to why I enjoyed it in the first place. Like it felt so short-lived, and nothing had really changed too much in that period of time. It's not like I went and read a bunch of reviews on it that said it was dog shit, and I was like, well, I better follow the herd now. It's just when I went back to it after a week, it was incredibly boring, and I feel that happens a lot with a lot of black gaze music. It's just, if you're not familiar with the genre and it's your first listen, maybe it'll hit you with something interesting and new, and then once you start to really dig into the genre, you'll find that the vast majority of it is very much clones of the same thing, and a lot of it is just kind of robotic in where it's they're kind of running riffs through a machine, There's not much heart into it in a genre that kind of rides on the emotion more than the riffs.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't have any heart in it, it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, have you ever considered it could be one of those things where, like, you're listening to a certain band or a certain sound for a while, and then it's kind of like, you know, like a knee jerk where, like, for example, if I listen to, like, Vector for a week straight, and then I go and listen to Wormphlegm, like, I'm not gonna give it a 2. I'm gonna hate it. I'm not even gonna listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because, like, I'm in that frame of mind or whatever, or I'm trained into, you know, being into a certain sound or feeling where, like, you know, if you listen to Leviathan or Zasser or something like that for a week straight, and then you go and listen to something like Moonlover, there's a possibility that it could be really off-putting to you just because you're just not in that mindset. You know what I mean?
I've never felt that way. I kind of have different genres of music that definitely ride on certain moods more than others, but
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever straight up just neglected an entire genre of music just because I wasn't in the mood for it. I guess like that's kind of a broad spectrum of music to just be like, oh fuck it, I've listened to too much Druid today. Can't listen to Black Gaze. Because there's a lot of genres of music that I can't say I've touched up on nearly as much as other ones. Hate to bring up fucking, I don't know, let's use, like, I don't listen to Doom nearly as much anymore. That used to be like one of my favorite genres, where I would just pound back some fucking yob for a week straight, and that would be my shit. I still fucking love him. I think Mike Shite is quite the opposite of shite. I think he's a fucking legend, and his play style and how he goes about making music resonates with me a lot. I agree with it, and I try to, when I make music, kind of follow the same attitude that he does. But I don't really listen to him nearly as much as I did, at least not in recent, like, it's probably been a month since I've even heard a Yob song be played, just because I've been busy digging into other things. And I could be listening to, I don't know, I could be on a war binge listening to Blasphemy and Revenge for forever. But if someone put on Yob, I would instantly vibe with it. That's the difference. It's like the second a Yob riff comes on, it's fucking got me by the balls. And there's no letting go because I'm into that shit. It's made so fucking well, and it's masterfully written, that it's like, there's people that I know, friends that just don't listen to Doom at all, barely listen to metal as is, and will throw on a Yob song. There's been a few times coming home from a few get-togethers where we're all a little hungover, and we're in the car on the way home, and we put on Yob as like the return music driving on the way home, because no one wants to fucking talk when you get a pounding headache and you've been up till like 5 a.m. We'll put on some Yob, and it just about fucking killed the bastard, but he enjoyed it. He was like, his first words out of his mouth was like, "What was that?" Which I think is very appropriate. But that's not a reaction I would get from the vast majority of Black gays. Maybe Alcest, because I know already that I can agree with at least a few of the albums I've heard from Nisha's work. Fuck Old Silver Key, we don't talk about that. But like Kodama, like I could probably throw that on right now and be pretty okay with it.
Yeah.
Most other Black gays, not.
See, I kind of feel like if I listen to Funeral Doom from today until next Saturday, and then I listen to that Wormphlegm album again, my score would probably go up.
Really?
Yeah.
See,
just because I would be in that zone by that point.
Really?
Like I'd be ready for it.
I think I kind of have like an opposite effect. Like at one point, you know, I actually like went through all of Leviathan's discography. You were talking about Leviathan earlier, and it's like he's got so much material. Like he had 15 demos before he even like released like Sublayer, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So I called it Leviathan 2K16. And I just, for like a whole week or so, like all I did was listen to Leviathan. And it was kind of, at one point, you know, it was kind of like, became a chore trying to complete like the whole discography. And I mean, I'm sure that happens with like any discography. But like some of those demos kind of sound the same and can
But that one in particular is a lot to take in.
But I also like I'll get in moods where like I'll be burned out on stuff like black metal, and like, you know, I kind of really need to listen to something else. And
yeah,
I mean, sometimes maybe I should throw on a Black Gaze album or something, like if I ever get in that mood again, and see if like I actually like it more. But I do agree that like Black Gaze is not a genre that I usually like look at after listening to an album and have that what is that reaction, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like a murmur to me, you know. I mean it sounds nice and it's cozy and it's kind of habitual, but like that's really all it's good for me. It's just kind of like, I guess, relaxing.
You just don't get it, man.
Fucking read the wiki, motherfucker.
Read the fucking wiki.
So, do you guys think, I know that Black Gaze became kind of popular. You don't think at all? Is that what you just said? Do you guys think that Black Gaze as a genre will stick around like black metal in general has, or do you think it's going to die off within the next decade?
Well, I wouldn't even say black metal has stuck around.
Really?
Like, it really hasn't. Well, look at how many fucking
I mean, it's changed
phases
shapes.
it's gone through.
Yeah.
It's been through so many shapes, and the only people that have really kept up the old school style are few and far between.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have a ton of underground people still kind of keeping up the old school traditions of like what Norway was doing in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff like that. And then every now and again, one will poke through and kind of be a little more noticeable than the other ones, be a little more noteworthy. But it's definitely not the norm.
Really?
No, like Orthodox black metal was, I think it's still probably the more popular form of black metal currently.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not amongst us, but like for maybe more recent black metal fans, or at least the good modern portion of them, they're definitely listening to stuff like Mistherming and all those, like the Icelandic scene, especially, where they're kind of continuing off what France has been doing for the past few years. That's really the direction they're going. The most documented modern black metal bands have just mostly been doing stuff like the Orthodox scene.
I don't know if it'll stick around, but I hope that it does. For a couple of different reasons. Black Gaze, I feel like, has the ability to get somebody who's not into black metal into it, if that makes sense. Like,
that's a good point. Yeah.
Somebody could hear something like that and then, you know, get one of those melodic parts and go, oh man, I like this. And then they'll buy the album and they'll play the album a couple of times, and all of a sudden, you know, they start liking the parts that are not melodic, you know, the tremolos and the blast beats and stuff. And then they're, oh man, that's really cool too. And then it leads them down the road a little bit further. And, you know, they start looking for, well, what if I want an album that has nothing but, you know, the crazy dark stuff. So there's that reason that I hope it sticks around, and I hope it sticks around because I like Black Gaze. I like having a little bit of makeup on all that ugliness. You know, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. Yeah, I do see where it could be. You know, a very like someone who hasn't ever listened to black metal, or has listened to black metal and thought it was a little too aggressive. Maybe you could throw that on and like work into it or something like that.
That's how you get all the pussy shit black metal.
Yeah.
Fuck it, man. The more the better. These guys got to get paid, dude.
Oh don't
You
get a
can't
cent.
just let them wallow in obscurity and
They have
you know
day jobs.
have jobs at the post office and shit. What if they could
You
actually
think-
make money?
You think they want to roll in fame when they go on stage with a fucking tarp over their face?
Well, like if you're like Leviathan or Panopticon, well, they played a show, but like you don't even have to tour. Like they just make albums and people buy them. But if enough people buy them, like the guy, like Leviathan, right? I know that he's a tattoo artist. But I don't know what his financial situation is. But you would hope, based on the work that he's done and the talent that he has, you would hope that maybe he just fucking tattoos because he enjoys doing it. Maybe, the hope would be he doesn't have to tattoo because he's fucking awesome and people buy his shit.
I think he
You know what I'm
mostly
saying?
tattoos just because he loves it.
I think that's been a thing
Just
that
the
he
s-
does,
the
even with
same-
his music, to be honest.
But like, I don't think the presence of black gaze is going to really change whether or not there's going to be a black metal scene, or at least fans for it. I don't think those people are ever going to go away. There's always going to be people, and honestly, it doesn't have to be black gaze that introduces them to it either. It doesn't even necessarily have to be fast music. I know there's a lot of death metal
I've been
fans.
exposed to.
Yeah, it completely relies on the person less than what exactly they're listening to. If you want to find it, I know that's how I ended up with it. I wanted to hear some fucked up, aggressive Viking music, like my whole life as a little boy.
Little bitty Narga.
Just wanted to find some big
Little baby Narga.
early
Little baby.
angry men with beards and axes fucking shit up. And whenever I tried to find music like that, all I could find was shit like Amon Amarth,
Shut
or
up.
really
Shut up.
really cheesy, terrible folk bands.
Yeah.
don't
I
mention
think
it.
one of them was like Olivia T, and it was like, we're Viking
Oh
music,
my
and it's
God.
like, just because you play a fucking hurgy-durgy and blow into a goat horn doesn't make you Viking music.
We can talk about that later because one of my recs is actually a folk metal song.
Okay.
Oh yeah, speaking
I'm-
of Rex.
I'm gonna
Lantlôs.
sum this up by saying, in the long run, I eventually stumbled upon Enslaved's Frost.
Yeah.
And everything had changed.
I think we should probably listen to this weekly, though.
Yeah, that's what I was about to do. I was about to say we should.
Yeah.
So
Let's hit it up.
All right.
Quick little recap, because we talked about Lantlôs for about 30 seconds, and then we had a debate about black gaze and the future of black metal.
I haven't heard it yet.
It's like what we said earlier. It's pretty standard, maybe black gaze in its infancy, a little unsure. I think, in my opinion, of what it wants to be and what it wants to sound like. This was from Froomp, F-R-O-O-M-P, from the Discord server, and he wrecked it, and he wasn't too enthusiastic about it. He meant to listen to this, and I figured if I wreck it, then I will listen to it. So, as far as I can tell, nobody's been like super excited about this thing.
Don't
yet.
do that shit in the future, please.
all right, we ready?
Yeah,
We ready to cue it up?
I
Let's
guess.
do it.
This is "These Nights Were Ours" by Lantlôs on their Neon album.
Black gaze is shit.
Well, that was a very short song to use, but I can definitely see what you guys were talking about.
Yeah, most of the album kind of sounds like that song. I mean, I kind of like that song, but it's kind of repetitive after a while, you know.
I was not
Weren't
that much
digging
of a
it.
fan of the production. Well, like the song in general was okay,
Mhm.
but again, it's like I felt like I've already heard it
Mhm.
5 times before. Why their guitar tone when it first came in near the beginning of the song
Mhm.
was ass, in my opinion. I did not like it, and then it didn't help, or maybe it did help if I didn't like the guitar tone. The fact that when the drums and the bass came in, it kind of just fucking flushed it down the drain. No more guitar. It's there, but it's really buried,
Yeah.
and I don't really know what their idea was when it came down to doing that, or if they just are not that experienced with mixing. Are these guys like a fucking indie band? Like, did they do the mixing themselves, or are they on a
I think they're
label?
German, and like their whole. I read up like a translated page about them earlier, and their whole like concept is about some sort of disease or disorder that one of the guys in the band has, where like I forget what it's called, but it's like he's kind of separated from reality or some shit like that. It's like an actual medical condition.
The name of the band actually means homelessness or homeless or something like that.
Yes.
In like some high German language. And yeah, I think he said it's because he doesn't feel at home in Germany or anywhere else. So I guess he has some sort of medical condition.
Well, he must if he makes this music.
Damn.
But anyway, that was
Cold-blooded.
that was These Nights Are Ours from Lantlôs's Neon album in 2010.
Buy it. Go out
Wow.
and buy it now.
That sure was interesting.
The guy needs
What?
money. He's got medical bills and shit. Buy his record.
Yeah, you're right. He doesn't live in Canada. He ain't got that free health care.
Free healthcare.
So I guess what we'll do now is close out with our recommendations from our charts this week.
Oh shit. Oh
Maybe
shit.
do that.
I don't know
Oh shit.
how much you
Yeah.
guys want to talk about them or not.
So basically, we all, despite talking about music for fucking an hour and a half now, we also happen to listen to it from time to time.
Yeah.
And we have selected 3 songs that we happen to enjoy from the recent week.
Yeah, stuff we
And,
listened to
we're
this week.
gonna force it on to you guys.
Do you guys want to talk about it at all, or do you still want to play them, or what?
Well, we could do like a little introduction on what the fuck we're gonna play, and then leave it at that. Just rip into it.
Cool. All right, Simo, so I think we're going to go with you first.
What? I got the
Yeah,
best
man.
one though. Why would you pick me first?
You want to go last? You want
God
to
damn it!
flip a coin?
All right. So this I'll be quick about it. Incantation is a band that I've heard about for a long time now, and I just never bothered to like go and check out their discography. So I started recently, and their most recent album, Dirges of Elysium, is right up my alley.
Sweet.
I'm a big fan of like the dark sounding technical death metal. Like I like it dirty, I like it slimy, I like it heavy, and these guys, they have everything that I'm looking for in this kind of music. The song that I picked, I can't remember the name, but it's just really a random song off of the album. I went through the lyrics a little bit. This particular song is, if I remember correctly, it was something about like a pool of like slime or something on the ground, and like there's like a demon or something from the underworld like manifesting itself out of it to like, you know, tear some shit up. And like that sort of like lyrical connection to what you're listening to always makes shit sound way cooler to me.
Mhm.
And long story short, I really enjoyed the album. I enjoy the concept. I like everything about it. This is probably a solid 8, maybe a 9 out of 10 for me.
Slime and shit. Was this their most recent album?
Yeah, I think it's 2014 or 2015.
Yeah.
They got a new one coming out in a few weeks.
Yeah, they have a new single out. You guys should go listen to if you haven't already. I don't know the name of it, but I listened to it earlier today, and it's pretty dope. They're coming out with an album on Relapse Records, though, and some people kind of were weary about that because, you know, some people kind of have something against the general sound on Relapse, apparently. So, but I checked it out today, and it sounded pretty good to me, so...
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's do it.
Let's hit this shit up.
All right, here we go. All right. So that was Portal Consecration from Incantation's 2014 album, Dirges of Elysium.
Wow, that sure was good.
I did enjoy that. Oh yeah, Narga here didn't get to hear it because the track wasn't available on.
Because of Canada, that's why.
Fucking Trudeau.
Enjoy your free health care.
Maybe
I'll enjoy my YouTube videos. How about that?
Sounds like a decent trade. So why don't you guys give me a little idea on what I missed?
It was good shit, and I'm sad that you missed it.
All right.
Yeah, it's pretty much like what I said about it before we played it. It's It's heavy. It's a little bit fast. It's got some, gurgly, not too gurgly vocals. It's dark, ominous.
If you've heard a Incantation album before, you probably know what to expect. But Incantation is a really consistent band, and they're consistently good in my opinion. It's kind of, I wouldn't call it doomy, but it's got that really, it's not slow at all. It's just got that really deep, sound.
It's got some of that umph.
It's got some umph to it. It's pissed as heck, man.
Angry.
Mm-hmm. All right, so who's up next?
I guess that'll be me.
Man, what you got?
So, the song I'm gonna wreck is it's called Huldron, from a Swedish band called Otyg, from their album Älvefärd. And what it is, they're a folk metal band. They're one of the older folk metal bands that actually still use like folk melodies in their songs, and isn't a lot of folk metal today sounds more like melodic death metal or something. And the only reason that they're called folk metal is because they throw some folk instruments into the mix.
Yeah, fucking fiddle.
Yeah, and I mean that stuff's cool and all, but like I like it to still have that like old traditional folk metal sound. This band kind of sounds like some of my more favorite folk metal acts. Like they involve Fenriz from Dark Throne, Isengard and his music, and Storm, another album that Fenriz was he collaborated with Satyr on from Satyricon. So yeah, this album it's got those traditional folk melodies, and it also features some of the boing, some of that mouth harp.
What?
Boing. Yeah, I've been really into that boing music, man.
So all those guys just featured on the album, or is this some sort of like folk super group?
No, they're not featured on the album. They just kind of sound like the stuff that's coming.
Okay,
that
sort
came
of like
from those
inspiration.
bands.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if they were inspired by Isengard and Storm, but they kind of sound similar to their albums. But yeah, so that's basically all I really have to say about it. You want me to cue it up some?
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Right on.
Oh, whiskey, you're the devil, you let it be. Oh, the mountains are still very gay. Your sweetness on your days undone, your spunky, your name. Oh, whiskey, you're sober.
Fuck. Christ.
That was
Hold me
Holdron.
up, baby.
That was Holdron from the Älvefärd album from Otyg.
Boy, jag sortar. Boy, jag sortar. Alright,
I
Jesus.
dig that stuff, man.
It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right, so next we
What'd you think, Narg?
I've heard like excerpts from the album. I haven't heard the full thing before, and like I don't know, I'm on the fence with it. But I was digging that song a bit.
yeah.
It's still not what I look for when I look for kind of folk metal, I guess. But
Yeah, no, it's not for
it's pretty
everyone.
decent.
I mean, it's fun and I don't know. I like the melodies and the low end and stuff, and even like the way that they're singing. I dig that like vocal style.
I'm not a big fan of female folk vocalists usually. There's just something about it that doesn't mix right with me.
I don't know what you're talking about. Sound like Rammstein to me.
Fucking, you're right, man. The goddamn Germans in there.
Why does everything sound like Rammstein?
Alright, let's move on to my shitty music rack. I got
Just turn it off. Turn the podcast off.
I had the tab and I had to search up the fucking Funeral Doom band. You forgot.
Hemo's got the
I
link.
lost it.
It's in the thing. It's in the sheet.
Yeah, you know what? It's just firing me already. I got a Finnish band for you. It's Blackened Crust Punk, and it's a relatively recent release.
Black and Crunch Punk. This is a metal podcast.
Dude, it's blackened.
You said it was
fucking
punk.
metal as fuck. Like
God
fucking
damn
blackened
it.
crust. Just throw
First
the crust
fucking
on it.
episode,
You'll hear
and
the
we're listening to
same
punk
damn
rock.
shit.
Fuck my life.
Yeah, but it's Finnish though. When
So
have the
it's
Finns
fake.
ever made anything that isn't metal?
I mean, he's got a point.
You're fucked now, but
I'm
Alright.
speechless. I'm out of words.
so this is a band called Arnaut Pavle, which is the best I'm gonna do to pronounce that. And it's only a fucking demo. They have no other albums besides this demo here. As far as I know, it's only one guy. There's not too much information on it. In fact, they had completely lost contact with the record label, Fallen Empire, and the record label had no idea if they were going to get any more material out of these guys or this guy. So they completely vanished from communication until recently. Apparently, they've gotten back in contact, but the guy only wants to talk about beer and women. So, fuck knows if we're gonna get any more music out of this guy.
Sounds like
But,
a boss.
He's a good guy. This is Arnaut Pavle, self-titled album, and this is the song "Eat the Soil" from this grave. It's good shit.
Yeah.
What
This
the
sounds
fuck
like a
is
laugh
this?
that we heard. Hey, get this folky fucking punk rock off of my metal podcast.
This shit ain't right.
What? Hey, what's going on here?
What the fuck? Why is this still playing? Yo, Hemo.
Hold on, I'll get it.
Hemo.
Hold on. There we go. Good job.
Yeah. Dude, it's fucking 18 minutes of your time. Never spent better.
Yeah, dude, that's good stuff.
The whole album rips like that constantly, and it'll
I
throw
wanted
you
to
some.
fucking drop my shoulder and just run through a wall right now.
Shit, straight to Finland then.
Yeah, we're fucking done. Before we stop though, I want to say thank you
To the Academy.
Arkanthera for putting together this community that we have. Sincere thank you. And I want to say thank you to Inver for creating that awesome intro music for us.
Yeah, dude, that was beast.
Well, boys,
All right.
I do believe that was the first episode of the Metal Music Podcast.
Wait a second. We need Hemo to come up with like an epic, we need the best outro that you can come up with right now. Like I want 110%. I want everything you got.
What do you mean we need an outro?
What do you mean?
I don't know, man. It's getting kind of late, and I think my neighbors are kind of pissed that I'm still up and talking right now.
Good thing you're an American. Fuck them.
But yeah, I mean, I suppose we should mention that we're going to put a link down at the bottom of the video.
Yeah, let's include links to all of the songs that we played as well.
Yeah, maybe where you can get a hold of the music too.
Yes. So in the description, you can get the Discord if you so choose, and you can get links to everything that you heard tonight.
Yeah, that'll be a good idea. So how are we feeling? We ready to wrap this stuff up?
I feel we're good to go, and we will see you all next week, or whenever the fuck we decide to get our asses together and do this again.
All
Ciao.
right.
We're going to do it again tomorrow. Be ready.
All right, guys. All right, stay metal. Peace out.
Later.